Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I want to pay tribute both to the Foreign Secretary and to the Shadow Foreign Secretary, I think, for the quality of their speeches that we've heard this afternoon. In the year since Vladimir Putin launched his vicious, unnecessary war in Ukraine, he has failed in almost all his objectives. He's failed to take Kiev, he's been sent scuttling from the Kharkiv region, he's been forced to evacuate Kherson, he has cost the lives of at least 60,000 Russian troops and with probably over 100,000 injured. In the areas he has occupied in Ukraine, he's created a new Flanders fields of mud and trenches and blasted trees where months of high-intensity shelling and bloodshed produce gains that could be measured in yards. He's been forced to such desperate expedients as sending prisoners to the front or terrified members of ethnic minorities recruited from remote provinces. And as my right friend, the Foreign Secretary, pointed out in his powerful speech, he is running pitifully low on the technically advanced weaponry that he increasingly needs. The seemingly irresistible force of the Russian military is breaking, Mr. Deputy Speaker, on the immovable object of Ukrainian resistance. And we in this House remain lost in our admiration for the Ukrainians, for their heroism, and for the continued inspiration that they are given by President Volodymyr Zelensky. And yet it remains all too possible that Putin can still achieve something that he can call a victory. All that he needs to do is to hang on to some piece of land that he has conquered, and the signal will go around the world that aggression can pay and that borders can be changed by force. All he needs to do to claim some kind of victory is to continue the cynical policy he's followed since the first invasion of 2014, which the Shadow Foreign Secretary rightly dwelt on, to use his foothold in Ukraine to destabilise the whole country. Unless he's purged from Ukrainian territory, he will twist his knife in the wound. He will bide his time, he will wait until he can attack again, he will continue to menace the lives of the Georgians, of the Moldovans, as the Honourable Member rightly pointed out, the Balts, and everyone living on the periphery of the old Soviet Empire. Unless he's finally defeated in Ukraine, Putin's revanchist ambitions will be unchecked, and that is why it is so crucial that we now accelerate our support for Ukraine and give them the tools to finish the job. We can all be proud of what the governments, successive governments, have done to help the Ukrainians, and their armed forces continue to fight like lions, and it is they who deserve the credit. But be in no doubt, Western equipment has been invaluable. And the story of the last 12 months is that sooner or later, having exhausted all the other options, we give them what they need, from anti-tank missiles to HIMARS to tanks. And so if that is the choice, sooner or later, then for heaven's sake, let's give these weapons sooner. It's absurd for Western supporters to keep asking the Ukrainians, as they were pressed at the Munich Security Conference, how long is this going to take? The answer to that question is to a large extent determined by us. It is a fine thing that we finally promised tanks, but there is no conceivable ground for delay in getting them to Ukraine. We need those machines, Abrahams, Challengers, Leopards, to make a real difference in real time in the next few weeks, not next year. It's admirable that we're proposing to train Ukrainian fighters to fly NATO fast jets. I hear the caution of my honourable friend. But it's curious that we're doing this before we've even taken the decision in principle to give them the planes. Let's cut to the chase and give them the planes too. And if the House was in any doubt about the urgency of increasing our supply of equipment to the Ukrainians, it is becoming ever clearer that China is preparing to arm the Russians. The Ukrainians have shown what they can do. They have the élan and the courage to sweep Putin from their lands, and they have the inestimable psychological advantage that they are fighting for hearth and home. With the right kit, including more long-range artillery, they can punch through the land bridge, cut off Crimea, and deal a knockout blow to Putin's plans. And they should not stop there. it is time for us all to end our obfuscation about what we think of as the Ukrainian victory and what we think of as Ukraine. The Ukrainians need to be helped to restore not just the borders of February the 24th last year, but the 1991 borders on which they voted for independence. It was the West's collective weakness in 2014, the effective acquiescence in Putin's aggression, which helped to convince him that he could launch an attack last year. And whatever the good intentions of the Normandy format, we cannot say that that process, that format, was a success, nor, frankly, can we say that the UK was right to absent ourselves from that format and from those discussions, and we must not make that mistake again. After a year of slaughter, we need to be doing more collectively to show the people of Russia what they are losing by Putin's misrule. We should be tightening the sanctions on oil and gas wherever we can. And what I hear the arguments that members are making about the need to use frozen assets, whatever the complexities, I think the House deserves to hear those arguments properly thrashed out. We should be making it clear to Putin's entire war machine, as well as the regime in the Kremlin, that they will be held to account for their crimes, the torture, rape and indiscriminate killing that they have sponsored. We must show them the mills of justice grind slowly, but they grind small. We should designate Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism, placing that country where it now rightly belongs in the list that includes Cuba, North Korea and Syria. And by the way, we should designate the infamous and bloodthirsty Wagner Group as a foreign terrorist organisation. It is a badge that is now richly deserved and long overdue. But above all, I'm just winding up, Mr. Speaker, but above all, we must give the Ukrainians what they need to win this war this year. By ensuring that Ukraine wins and that Putin fails, we are making the best and the most financially efficient investment in the long-term security, not just of the Euro-Atlantic area, but of the whole world. We all know that we in this country made a promise to Ukraine under the 1994 Budapest Memorandum when the Ukrainians gave up their vast nuclear arsenal. We said we would come to their aid in the event of an attack. Now is the time, finally, to do what we can to honour that promise. The Ukrainians are not just fighting for their freedom, but for the cause of freedom around the world. We should give them what they need, not next month, not next year, but now.